So, welcome to this week's Leaders Mastermind. Special guest, none other than Ewan Morton. Ewan, I really feel you don't need any introduction. So, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Hello.
Hey, great to have you here and great to share some insights. You know, the Morton business has got, a number of very, very interesting divisions to it. You've got a big footprint as a business. And no doubt there's some major learnings that have come out of this whole health, safety, economic kind of circumstances. And one of the things, guys, that I know I've been talking a lot about in the last week or two is let's make sure we're spending enough time looking through the windscreen rather than the rear vision mirror. So I'm really cool about grabbing learnings, but we need to grab the learnings and move forward as opposed to here's what I did. No, what did I learn from that? Because if and or when this happens again, I've got a better plan. I can go in a more effective way. So it's about the learnings and what have we changed or doing differently in the business. And you've done a fair bit of work on that. Would you fair to say?
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Which I think like everybody has.
Yeah. Well, it's nothing like a deadline, is it? So it's that ability to go, okay. Those changes that we might have considered making over the next, 12, 18 months, there's that really forced compression strategy to be able to say, put these things in place much sooner. And we're not through it. And we're not through it yet either. As we were talking before, interesting enough, your market is probably the market where you've got lots of stock. And not a lot of movement. Well, movement in sale price in a southerly direction, which tends to have owners sort of not want to make that decision, which is interesting.
Yep.
So how about we work through a number of areas, guys? If you've got some questions, pop them into chat as we go through. And you're respected across the entire real estate profession in terms of your leadership, your insight, and perspective. And I know you put,
maybe,
yeah, absolutely. It's valid. It's the truth. Okay. And I think you've got that ability to see things very clearly and articulately deliver some key messages.
Yep.
From a leadership point of view, any shifts, any changes you've needed to or put in place from a leadership style?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say the main one is, the first thing is a lot of these things are a repeat of crises that we've had before. So in a way, I definitely know how to deal with it from a leadership point of view. So when I reflect back to the GFC and what happened then, I've gone back to some of the things that I did then. So the way I sort of describe it, my great analogy is the great medieval battle. And it's a question, are you up on the hill in the tent surveying the battle, telling the troops where to go? Or are you actually got your armor on your horse and down on the front line? And at the moment, I'm on the horse on the front line is where it is, and making sure that I'm fighting next to the troops. So that we're definitely in that mode. And I quite like that mode, I have to say. So it's been good from that point of view. Obviously, I've got David here, David Elton, who's the joint managing director with me, and he's like our brains trust. So he's running the spreadsheets and doing the thinking, whereas I'm the one who's more out with the people. So up the communication, lots of Facebook videos, we've got a closed Facebook group. So lots of videos. I learned how to use video editor so I could make them look a bit snazzier. But definitely putting the messages out there and putting the bad messages. I did get some criticism from our senior PM team who said that, could I not deliver bad news by video? Because I got on the video and said, look, we might be cutting everybody's pay. But then I reflected and thought, well, you've got to say what has to be said. So that's one of the big things is you're just better off to say it. And we haven't cut anybody's pay at the moment. So we've managed to get through, but I told them it would be a month by month sort of a choice, and it still is a month by month situation. So I suppose that's it, communicating. I've been moving around the offices. So in terms of living at home, I'm actually not very good at in my own home. Particularly, it was quite funny. I felt like even if I'm sitting in one of our offices and it's empty, At least I feel like I'm there. So I started moving around a lot more. So obviously a lot of Zoom meetings. So doing Zoom meetings, but I'll be in a different location. And I found that made a difference, like particularly with the young ones. So this is the first challenge they've ever faced in their entire lives. And a lot of our young people have collapsed. So had catatonic moments of sobbing at their desk. So yeah, I mean, you can't get much worse than that. And in a few of those cases, I've been able to catch that by actually being there at the time, right? And I suppose, this is where your parenting skills come in. So that's good. And also just being able to reassure everybody that, we're going okay, keep working hard, giving tips, just getting those sort of emotional heart connections, I suppose, is what I've been concentrating on. And because even though it's spread out over quite a distance, I spend a lot of time, I think about each person and what they're doing and where they're going. And I can actually get a bit of a sense if I think they're about to go off the edge of the cliff. So I've spent a lot of time just making those, you just in the car, make the calls, talk to them, how you're going, how you're finding things, little things that might be happening that, just indicators that they might be losing their focus. And also too, we've had a few people who haven't actually probably performed as they should. So a couple of those types of conversations too is step up and step up now. So I'd say from a leadership point, definitely doing that. Even I feel it even is changing a bit even this week, where everyone seems to be moving on a little bit from COVID, but I don't want to lose that. So I'm still, this week actually my routine's been thrown around a bit in terms of which office, but generally I've got 2 days in Crow's Nest, 1 day in Green Square, 1 day in Piermont, and then 1 day out at Wentworth Point. And I actually am finding if I'm not turning up to those offices now, then people are missing me, which is quite nice. It's nice. Yeah, it feels good. Sort of, and it is that energy, that chief energy officer thing. So the downside of all of that, I found it's actually quite exhausting. So, getting out there and trying to pump everybody up. I get home, honestly, like I get home and can hardly speak. So, it's just, I'm actually taking a week off in a couple of weeks and all I'm going to do is sit in my garden basically, just to recharge. But I sort of feel that that's what's required to keep everybody from getting too scared. Yeah.
And I think, Ewan, this is there's two super important points there. One is the market needs more energy from our team.
Yeah.
So the team needs more energy from us.
Yeah.
And also you need to do the recharging. Now, I was really surprised. I thought you were going to bring the yoga thing in that we spoke of earlier.
Oh, no, I've taken...
Go on.
I've taken up yoga. Anyone who's a middle-aged man should do yoga. Like it's an app called Skills Yoga. Kerry, you'd love this, mate. I've got into it and I'm doing half an hour of yoga every morning, and I reckon I'm fitter than I've ever been.
And should we talk about the 4 kilos? Come on.
Well, so I went back to the gym. Like I've got a personal trainer too, and I had to do the whole, be reassessed for my goals and how fat did I get during COVID. And I do have a tendency to like cake. So I wasn't potentially looking forward to that step on the scales, but I'd actually put on 4 kilos. So I was like, that's quite a lot of kilos. But they did the special radar treatment where they work out what percentage body fat you've got. And they were able to tell me that of the 4 kilos, 3 kilos were muscle and 1 kilo of fat. So I was like, go the yoga. So yeah, I'm moving through my 50s now. So I thought I've got to fight a good fight and try and not fall to bits, which is part of my strategy. I find also, on a serious note, like that's part of being able to maintain the energy, right? Of being able to put it out there is having that. So I get up at 5:30 every morning and do my yoga.
Yeah. And I think this is a super important point that you got to look after you. So even that recognition, okay, I need to take a week off.
Yeah.
You're going to be better for the team by taking the week off. And
also, I don't know what everyone else is finding, but you've got that roller coaster of COVID. So, the disaster in the beginning, and then you start moving your way through it. And the way I described it is like there's an iceberg, we can see it and we are sailing relentlessly towards it, right? But it's sort of coming at us slower than, say, in some other industry. So, you know, as you're sort of moving relentlessly, boy, you got the whole team sort of almost back rowing to try and make sure you can navigate around that thing. And so every week's been a new challenge. So, you know, this week is a full recognition that it's not a rent reduction by COVID anymore. It's now a rent reduction by market. So our Macquarie Street office, which has an average rent of $1,000 a week, I reckon that might actually be down to $700 to $800 by the end of the year, because we've got it's like as though that whole market is spiraled down. So all the tenants are now moving out, and we're cycling expensive down to cheaper. So, and we can't stop that. So, you know, not all our offices are like that.
You know, the tenants moving into other apartments that you've got, or
we're shuffling tenants around, but they go, you know, what was 1150s now 850. You know, wow. that sort of drop is what we've been seeing. And of course, the other thing is that we're trying to keep people on leases, but by having the conversation about getting a new lease means that the rent gets renegotiated. And at this stage, it's been renegotiated down. So we get fees for signing up letting fees, but we're actually dropping our management fees. So that was one of the real lessons. And we've been watching, you know, it's obviously at the end of the month, we'll get our management fees from the property management, and that underpins our whole business. So, you know, if we get a 20 to 30% drop in that, then that's sayonara the profit for property management. So, and yesterday's, we've stood people down, but yesterday's decision was like, you know, we can either sack people and get our business to fit that revenue. But if we do that, we're actually going to be, it'll just spiral down. So the decision yesterday was, right, bring the fuckers back and let's fight our way forward and sell our way out of this. You know, where it's like, well, if our management fees are going to come down, then we're just got to add more properties to get them back up again. Those rents will eventually go up. So, you know, over the next year to 18 months to 2 years, we'll get them back up again, but that's a long period. So we're just going to bring it back. And that's what's driving us on the technology, because we've got to get the technology in there to put that margin back. So, you know, when you sort of, it's just like, man, you know, and I suppose we're all moving a lot faster on things like that. We always had a plan to upgrade the technology. And to a certain extent, when COVID came along, we're like, okay, let's just get through COVID, then we'll get back to it. But what's happened to us is we're like, do you know what? We really need to do this now. So that's the other reason why I'm trying to get out and about, is because we've just got our property management team to deal with COVID. And now we're going to turn around and change the technology. So they need that like a hole in the head. So it's how manage our way through that. But I think we're moving to our property to the payment gateway. And Kerry and I were talking about this together as well, but we'll probably be moving one of our portfolios in July to that. So we're pushing ahead regardless.
Yeah. So you had our property as of when?
Well, we've had our property for almost 18 months because it sits on top of Rest. Mm-hmm. But what's become apparent to us is that's actually not working anymore. Rest is a pain in the ass. It's actually holding us back big time. And we need to get to the payment gateway so we can actually decouple Rest. The linking of the data between Rest and our property, it's a great way to get started. Like, it's comforting and it's small changes. But we've reached the point now where it's like, you know what, the ship sailed, cut the cord. Yep. And we just have to go there. So David's really running all of that. And so I've got to say they've got a really great project plan, and they're thinking through resources and all this sort of stuff to make sure that the program's a success. Cool. So that's
Any other PM initiatives? And you know, that's a big one. That's a big one. Gateway.
Yeah. Like, I think we're learning a lot about leasing a new business. In terms of, you know, we have quite a big new business team. We've learned that our natural new business rate, so if we do nothing, right, don't make any proactive steps, we seem to be doing about 25 new landlords a month. If we put some proactive effort into it, we get over 50. So we're like, okay, well, at least we know what our sort of platform is. The other thing that we've learned is, if you sort of think of it as, say that's the leasing and the new business team, and that's 100% of time between all of them. Probably before COVID, we had 50% being done by leasing and 50% being done by new business. In fact, it might have been more 60% leasing, 40% new biz, right? And the reason for that is that the leasing is reactive, whereas the new business is proactive, and everyone always tends to favor reactive over proactive. What we sort of learned, because we stood people down, like in order to be prepared, and it made us think a lot about our leasing. So we were very much, leasing was done by office, whereas we're sort of moved now where the leasing is being done more by team. And we ended up having what we call door openers, right? So we always had the view that a leasing consultant had to go to the property and be there to lease it. And what we've learned is that actually that's not true. Because of the data that comes through Inspect Real Estate, so we're a really detailed user of that. You actually know, because no one's hitting it, turning up, whatever, you know what the problem is. It's the rent. It's always the rent, right? So, and as we know, the rent can be tweaked $10 and that can make all the difference. So what they found is that if you have people go out there that show the tenants and do the door opening, I mean, I was calling them door bitches, but everyone said that that's politically incorrect and I'll get into trouble. So I stopped doing that. Our people and culture managers got on maternity leave, so things have got a bit out of control. A bit of old school, I say, but anyway. So by them doing it, it means the leasing consultant actually can sit in the office and they're actually talking to the owners a lot more and they're negotiating a lot more. And they're also spending more time actually assessing the application, right? So actually, are we getting a quality tenant? So it's sort of like a flip. So what we've learned, we thought, right, door bitches, here we come. But that's actually going to be a bit more complicated to put in place because we've got all these people who didn't sign up to be door bitches. So we're going to have to, I think that's going to be a longer term strategy that we keep going in. But I think that's going to lift the productivity of our leasing consultants and our new business people. Yeah, also, what I learned from that, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old.
So Ewan, I think you're talking open hosts?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. But so, but also a very good junior start position. So that'll be one of the changes that could come out of it. And so what I think that we can do is we can do 40% leasing, 60% new business. So we can get the effort there. So go from our 50 to our 65 or something like that through that project. Now, no one's necessarily agreeing with me at the moment on this. So this is going to be a good one where everyone's going to be pushed. Like what I've found is I've actually been a bit irritated with our whole sort of leasing new business side because I feel like our standards of what we used to do 10 years, we used to get more productivity out of a leasing consultant than we do now and out of a young person because everybody's so in touch with their feelings. And, you know, when they've got to do something that's challenging, they're sort of telling you about it and how stressed they are and they start crying and all these sorts of things. And I reckon what that's done is led to a productivity decline. Anyway, that's also not one of my most popular opinions around the business at the moment. But I said, you know what, you fuckers, we're going forward and that's just all there is to it. So they're all about to get a bit of that. So that's one of the, and as a result, what's actually happened is our young people are now a lot tougher than what they were. So we had a couple of them, they honestly went catatonic, sobbing, right? But now that we sort of supported them through that, like I was nice to them, okay, I'm talking up a little bit. I was nice to them. But now what's happened is they've actually turned out to be a bit tougher. So I sort of think, yes, now they can really be a success in real estate. I did have one moment, which Michael, you would have been absolutely thrilled at, where I was talking to the leasing consultants. They wanted my honest opinion as to how I thought they were going. And I told them they were pathetic. Anyway, I had to backtrack on that one and apologize. But that's actually what I really thought. I thought, for God's sake, pull yourselves together. But that, I can talk like that in our group, but when you're out there with the young ones actually have done amazingly in the fact that they have pulled themselves together and they've learned a lot, and what they're capable of now is a lot greater. So that's one of the opportunities. So it's how we capitalize on that moving forward.
Can I just jump in with this? Yeah. The theory of relativity is something that we need to take out of this conversation, because the relative experience of stress that someone has had has been this much. So therefore, when that happens, that's my limit in terms of stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or difficult situation, or the theory of relativity. If I've only ever run 100 meters, a kilometer will feel really far. But if I run 10 Ks, a kilometer is not that far.
Yeah.
So I think what has happened with this, and it's a really cool learning, guys, coming out of this, is to allow people to know that their experience of the world, and that's the way we do it, is all based on that relativity. So what this has done is actually stretch their relativity. Now, you can do that through examples. I've occasionally said is, if you're thinking you have a bad day, there's only 90% of the planet that would want to swap with you. And it's like, oh, hang on, that's a theory of relativity kicking in there. So sometimes people get caught in their stuff as opposed to, hang on a tick, let's have a look at this and put this in perspective. And that's one of the things I think, Ewan, that you do fantastic, is that relativity kind of component coming back in. So just be aware of that, guys. Quite often we're the ones needing to actually tip in that relative, given that relative scale. If you feel like you're having a bad day, go to a Charles Burns ward, and I guarantee you're going to actually say, there's nothing about my life that's an issue. So how do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of massively, like having to remind people that we're actually, we are actually really lucky. And I think most of the company thinks that. No one's got COVID. Like, no one got COVID. We had one of our guys' wife got COVID, but none of us got COVID. So it's sort of like, that's okay. We're navigating okay. The sales is going better than expected. So that's been interesting, in terms of how that's panning out. And it's just, yeah, again, so it's just reminding everybody, you got to lower your expectations, really. Of course, we all want to, it's frustrating. I think it's very frustrating from a principal point of view where, really, I think the troubles in real estate sort of started in 2017 when we had all these disruption, disintermediation, elections, and volumes dropped. Like, we peaked up at like just about 6 million in sales fees and came right back to 3.6, right? And just like, mate, right? And then the property management had its own issues. And I felt like at the end of last year, we'd actually started to resolve those problems and we're getting back to it. Then we're hit with COVID, right? And you're just like, I really don't need this.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It is what it is. And so what it's just giving us another message that we've got to go that next level of efficiency. And it's all that stuff that Macquarie Bank's been telling us to do, and all that pressure that's coming about, extra revenue streams and changing your business models and stuff. And I think what COVID's done is given us an opportunity to actually make those changes. So, for example, we've got 8 offices and I really want to take 4 of them and I want to put them into one spot. And COVID's taught us, we've always been really thinking about our small local offices and that being our model. Whereas now I just think it's holding us back. If I had everybody together, I reckon I could solve a lot of problems. And this whole thing of everybody being flexible in their work, which is actually what everybody was doing anyway. It's like the salespeople are going at 10 o'clock at night and, all these different things that go on. It's just given real recognition to that. So does everybody really need a desk to sit at? Some people do, but some people don't. So I think that's one of the big changes. And we're having whole discussions about how do we make all that happen? Because we've got a few leases coming up next year, which actually could make some of this journey to sort that out, could evolve. In fact, I've got somebody who might want to buy our Piedmont office that would get us out of our lease and he can have as an owner occupier and we'll go somewhere else. Like there's things like that are happening that we're pushing.
And what I'm hearing in there, Ewan, is an openness to look at it from a different point of view, as opposed to, well, we're in Piedmont, full stop, we're in Piedmont, as opposed to, well, hang on, we're in Piedmont now. Is that the best right decision for us to look at? Yeah. And, it's interesting, the great question coming through from Kerry. So if you've got any questions, guys, just pop them in the chat with Ewan. Is, if you look back over the last 3 months, is there anything you'd change or do differently? Now, just as you're getting ready to answer that, guys, next Thursday, I'm doing a specific business planning session. It's a part of Navigate. So, and there's a new template, I'll show it to you today, that is about that, and a new SWOT document that we've actually created as well. So I'll get both of those out to you today to have a look at. Ewan, anything different?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yesterday, I was pondering whether we stood everybody down. Obviously, that actually did improve the profit, like got us through the last couple of months. And I'm wondering now whether, we should have just kept going and actually kept pushing with the growth function. So I suppose you've got the hysteria of COVID, and we had to take that seriously as to what could happen. And it's all very well to be sitting here in hindsight, what are we, 3 months down the track, when things haven't panned out to be as bad as what we thought when we did the spreadsheet, right? And I remember Kerry and I were having conversations at that particular point as whose spreadsheet was the most savage. And then that's something I learned. It's one thing to have a savage spreadsheet. It's another thing to deal with the people and the impacts on all of the culture of that. So that's one thing. Now, in hindsight, should I just actually kept everybody on board and just kept going? And so, for example, in somewhere like the CBD, there's so much opportunity because no one can lease anything. So we're actually leasing stuff. So, but I don't know. I'm not sure. In terms of how we've approached it and how we've communicated with the team, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I'm quite happy with that. One of the things that I think is going to happen now is we will probably lose some people. In fact, it happened yesterday. We had one of our leasing consultants resign. I always find during a time of crisis, everybody holds it together. But once the pressure comes off a bit, people lose their shit. And I've always find that's where people, it's like as though they have a delayed reaction. So we're just going into that now, which is, yesterday, that's why we made the decision to bring everybody back, just to take that pressure off because everybody's getting exhausted. So I would have thought maybe that was it, Kerry, whether we needed to do all those stand downs. If it happened again, I'd possibly, obviously, I suppose now we've got more information as to what the effects on the business would be. So I would know what was going to come, and potentially I would take a view of everyone hold the line and keep doing what you're doing and push through it. But that's all very well to say it now because no one got COVID and we're not all on ventilators. I think if we'd all been on a ventilator, a very different story.
Yeah, and I think if we do a snapshot in some of the other countries how they've handled it, it could have been a radically different outcome.
Well, and also I reckon I reckon old ScoMo and Gladys, I reckon they've done a good job.
Yeah,
I think they've done a good job.
Yeah. You and I know yourself, Dave, and I had a number of conversations around commission structures, and is now the time to change comms. Yeah. Could you just maybe talk a little bit about that thought process that you went through? Because I think that's super valid to look at.
I know one of the great I learned. This is actually a big learning. One of the things we decided to do is put all the salespeople under commission only. So that was an outcome of the great spreadsheet. So off we went. Okay, everyone, you're all going comm only. And fortunately, what we did, it's one thing me making a statement like that, but then we got Jackie, who manages the sales team, to do a one-on-one with each person to see what they really thought about it. And then she came to me and David when she'd done all the one-on-ones, and we're all sitting there looking at each other. And what the truth turned out was that if I did that, then a lot of the reasons that people are at Morton in the first place, and a lot of I would say the bullshit that I bang on about culture and leadership. And, you know, I was sitting there going, no one ever listens to me anyway, as I rant like a lunatic. But what came out of it was like, oh my God, they do listen to that stuff, and it is important. And they were sort of like, so, you know, things get tough, so you throw us to the wolves. And we had people, you know, I had a couple of salespeople just on the cusp, you know, like it takes so long for someone to get up and get going. And if I whacked him on a commission only, he couldn't pay the bills, right? He'd be fucked. And we had people whose partners lost their jobs. So, you know, they weren't earning a lot of money anyway, but, you know, if I stood them down, suddenly they can't pay the bills. And we've always had this culture that we're a team, and the whole family thing, you know, everyone always gets into that. Like, actually,
Ewan, I think this is a super important point. For a long time, and I've seen a number of coaches and trainers out there talk about going to a client and saying how simple it is and how easy it is. So the challenge with that is, if it's simple and it's easy, why am I paying you this much money? That's the challenge. So I love the quote that I learned from Sharon, and he talks about showcase complexity, deliver simplicity. So, and this is, I think, a very, very important frame. Like our listing appointments should actually, be it for a management or be it for a sale, showcase a level of complexity that we go through. And the beautiful thing is, we're going to deliver it in a simplicity kind of a way. I think too often we've been doing the showcase simplicity, and then we actually wonder why they have got a challenge with fees. Of course, they're going to challenge your fees. It's simple. Ewan, awesome for you to share these particular insights and perspectives. The 2 documents, guys, coming out that I'll send you, and you're going to see the new Michael Shugold branding, by the way, is firstly this one, which is it's an upgraded growth plan, the growth imperatives and so on. We've added these key learnings and insights. That's a great thing to do collectively with the leadership team. And then on page 2, guys, you've got the growth plan as you know it, with just a couple little tweaks that we'll go through. We've added these questions under each of the points, so it's quite self-guided to be able to have you walk through it in an effective way. The other tool, and we talked about this very briefly last week, so we've now created it and put this into place, is the SWOT analysis document. So this has got a SWOT for you to take through. It's got the navigation. We'll go back to the first page. Why SWOT, the SWOT navigation that we've talked about, the key benefits of the SWOT. And then we actually go through and roll through to a whole series of questions: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then, of course, a framework there, but quite often you'll do it on a whiteboard or a flip chart. So I'll get those 2 tools out to you today. They will be on the knowledge base as well for you to jump in and have a look at. Can we give Ewan and Morton a round of applause? Yay. Ewan, great insights, great perspective. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to pause the recording now, guys, but what I'd love you to do in the feed, in the chat, could you just pop through what are the most important takeaways that you've actually gained from today?